Good afternoon, live from Toronto on the GBKM network. This is the Chat Up Show, the show where we catch you up with a chat up of our weekly headlines. I'm your host, Elizabeth Aloidi, and I hope that you are ready to chat it up with me today. Now, as always, you know you can keep up with the GBKM network in various ways. You can continue to listen and watch live 24/7 at www.gbkm.tv or www.gbkm.fm, where you can watch all of our live shows, catch up on any past shows you may have missed, check out our upcoming show schedule, check out our breaking news tab to learn about what's going on around the globe. You can also like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Also, make sure you download our free app available for all iOS and Android devices by searching GBKM in the Apple or Google Play Store. You get the exact same features as on our web station. You get to watch live shows, you get to listen to live shows, catch up on any past shows, check out our upcoming show schedule, like, share, comment, all of that good stuff. But the best part about this free app is you will be notified every time we go live. So as long as you turn on your notifications, we'll let you know every time we're going live. If you got the app right now, you probably got a notification right now to let you know that we are live. So make sure you download the free app right now. Just search GBKM in the Apple or Google Play Store. You can also continue to watch us on Facebook and YouTube at GBKM Network, where you can continue to join in the conversation by liking, sharing, commenting. And you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at GBKM Network for more updates on what's going on right here on GBKM. Now, election day has concluded, and we do know who now is our leader. Our Prime Minister continues to be Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. When he called the 2021 federal elections in August, he said it was because he felt that Canadians had the right to choose how they want to move forward in terms of the government that they had leading them. Of course, he did want a majority government so that he won't have to be pattying up to the other leaders of other parties, but we now know that that is not the case. We are again in a minority government, and he is the leader of the minority government. We also see that there's also almost an identical House of Commons heading to Ottawa in terms of seat distribution, meaning that there weren't that many differences. There are a few gains and a few losses that we'll get into. So the real question is, are Canadians in for some of the same stuff? Like, is there much to change? Is there much going forward? Are we going to see any more differences? Now, we do have a little clip of the speech that Prime Minister Trudeau gave around 1 a.m. Tuesday morning, Monday night, however you see it, after he found out that he won. Check that out.
We've all worked so hard over the last few weeks and over the last few years, and we have come so far. My friends, tonight, I think of something Prime Minister Wilfrid Laurier said as his generation was at the dawn of a new century. He said, "Let them look to the past, but let them still more look to the future." Let us not forget the past and the dark days we have come through together, but let us still more look to the future and all that is still to come and all that we have still to build together. Let us feel the warmth of a new dawn, and above all, let us seize the promise of a brand new day. Merci, mes amis. Thank you, my friends. Merci tout le monde.
Now, it is a new dawn and a new day and looking to the future that a lot of Canadians are looking towards. They're trying to figure out what changes are actually going to come to be. And will these be the changes that have been promised in the past that, you know, as our Prime Minister said, that we can look to, but it's important to look to the future. So in terms of the future, a lot of folks are wondering what's next, what's going to come of this essentially almost identical government that we have. So here's where things stand right now. Heading into this race, Liberals held 152, or towards the end of this race, sorry, they had 158 seats. Conservatives held 119, Bloc Québécois 34, the NDP 25, and the Green Party had 2. Now, What this would mean is that the Liberals essentially have gained a couple more seats, as one was elected MP under the party banner and will be sitting as an independent actually, so that's a new change. Conservatives did not pick up more seats despite winning the popular vote and defeating a trio of cabinet ministers in part due to the People's Party of Canada pulling support away. We know that there has been a lot of things going on within the Conservative Party as well, and there's going to be more to come regarding how Conservative Party leader Erin O'Toole feels about the outcomes of this election. Bloc Québécois Party may end up 2 seats ahead of where they were last month, while NDP are largely in the same spot. So just hearing this, there isn't a lot that has changed. We know that Prime Minister Trudeau did want to gain a majority government so that he wouldn't have to work with other party members to, you know, put policies forward and actually make them become a reality. However, that isn't necessarily what's happened now. So the next steps in terms of getting this 44th Parliament up and running will include Trudeau appointing a new cabinet. We're still waiting on that official speech to come through. There hasn't been a clear date as to when he's ready for media appearances and when, you know, he'll be getting questions, but there will be some time in the near future where we will hear who he has appointed for his new cabinet. The House of Commons is also electing a speaker and determining the parameters of the returning to Parliament in a 4th wave. As we know, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, which was another thing that folks were wondering why we had to do an election in the middle of a pandemic when all focus should be shifted to ensuring that Canadians are being kept safe, that we're going to manage our way through this 4th wave and ensure that many more lives will not be lost and that the number of cases will not continue to rise. In fact, we actually went out into the streets on Monday to speak to Canadians at different polling booth sites to get their opinions on this election, what they are hoping the outcomes will be, and what really matters to Canadians right now during this election, during this slight change in government. So take a look at what they had to say right now.
So I'm looking for some changes, actually, yes. I want to have a little bit more support for seniors, for students. So I hope at least my vote somehow will make it happen.
Honestly, I think both the major parties aren't doing what they're promising. And I'm just hoping something changes, you know? People are saying, you know, vote NDP, and the people are saying it's, you know, you shouldn't split the vote with the Liberals and stuff, but I feel like all the parties are the same at this point. And there needs to be something different. Yeah. Personally, I think they're doing too much. I feel like they shouldn't be trying to. They should be looking into a solution. Like, so I have a problem with this because instead of saying what people should do, they just say masks are good, vaccinations are good, but they don't go into details of how you should mask yourself, how it helps you, and they don't even go into the detail of the virus itself, is what I feel like. I feel like there has to be more information for people to understand what's actually going on, and that people are missing out and like understanding what's going on.
I think it's crazy. I think it's inappropriate to call an election at this time. So that part really throws me off because I'm concerned about COVID. I'm concerned about the economy. I'm concerned about people. And I think bringing us all together just doesn't make sense. And there's so many other issues that they could have dealt with without having an election for 2 years. We could wait. I could wait 2 years. So that's, at this point, it's a difficult decision to make, but the one thing I really think it's inappropriate. My hope is that somehow there can be some even out of balance and harmony so that at least everybody can realize that what the common good is and not look at political gain, but really focus on what is for the common person and the common good of Canada, that we truly can be a country that respects the vulnerable, the elderly, the refugees. For me, that's where my heart is. And I hope that some of the policies that have been proclaimed maybe come forth with it. I hope we listen to science, and I hope we have the courage to take the necessary steps, even though there may be people crying for freedom. But what is freedom? Your freedom stops where mine starts, and there are consequences. So I hope that whoever's running has the courage to make the decisions necessary to keep us safe, and not do it for political gain or according to one group or another group, or because of pressure.
I feel like the hope that they were hoping to get a majority government, but is not going to happen either way. And any party that comes into power, it's going to be another minority government. So I feel like it's frankly a waste of taxpayers' money, waste of people's time, and it's putting people into a situation where it's risky. You're battling a pandemic and you're calling an election mid-pandemic. Doesn't bode well for the Liberal government, doesn't bode well for the Conservatives or the Liberals or the NDP that are running. So I don't know. I don't think people are happy. I think the results are going to be similar, and I don't think they're going to get the majority that they've been wanting. The only thing that's a good thing about the elections is they're tackling topics that people need or want addressed, right? Like housing, like COVID, like climate change. So it's coming back to, platforms and trying to figure out what each party's running on, what the promises are. It's questionable whether they're going to achieve the things that they're promising in the term that they're going to be running for.
I'd like to see the government that's going to be in place take responsibility for what is our current status quo, and somebody that perhaps can take us out and forward and continue with our day-to-day living. Well, I feel that they're doing everything that they can possibly be doing. I think we have a certain responsibility to work along with the government, and perhaps if we all cooperate with one another, we'll see some end to this.
One of the biggest issues I had with this election was the communication each party had with each of its members in the district. In my district, the only name I've heard of was Yara Sachs, and I feel like no other party made an attempt to reach out to me before or to convey information. Yes, I did watch the news, but I'd rather have my specific district person tell me more about it. So as a result, my vote cast ballot was empty. I knew nothing of Yara Sachs, what she wanted to do, nothing about the Conservative member, nothing about the NDP member, nothing about what they want to do specifically with this district. So I thought I wouldn't vote out of just randomness. I'd rather have reasons for it. And I think the reasons for me not voting was justified in this case, especially because these members they didn't make it clear enough what it is they wanted to do. What I mean by members, I don't mean the party itself, but these specific members, if that makes sense. One of the changes I'd like to see is gun violence and gun control, especially in our area here. That's one of the biggest things I'd like to see around here. Yeah. And the hopes for it. And just hopes for safety around more of that. That's my biggest concern.
So I'm looking for some changes.
And there you have it, just some examples of the things Canadians have on their mind regarding this election. A lot of people just calling for change. For many people, of course, we saw now, the majority government is not a thing. It's still a minority government, and a lot of folks felt that was what was going to happen regardless. And there were questions as to why we even had these elections come up. In the last clip we saw, someone even saying that they felt that there wasn't enough information being shared from different party members to make their vote count, and that they felt that they should just leave the ballot empty because they felt that they hadn't been, campaigning enough. It was a very speedy election. We know that Prime Minister Trudeau called this federal election on August 15th, and by September 20th, just over a month and 5 days later, we had voted and the elections had concluded. A very quick and the lowest amount of days legally allowed within Canada to call an election, all in the hopes of gaining a majority government. And we now see that it is not a majority government, minority government. So in the next few days, in the upcoming weeks, there are folks that are going to be asking a lot of questions, especially why the need to call for these elections when now the results that he was looking for did not come to fruition. There's still certain uncertainties as to what we're going to see moving forward, how things are going to be, but the main focus right now is definitely the pandemic and this fourth wave that we are currently riding all over Canada, but especially here for us in Ontario as well. Now, Prime Minister Trudeau, once again, him and the Liberals will have to do sort of a dance with other party members and party leaders, with opposition parties, most likely with the Bloc and NDP members, to pass key legislation and stay afloat. So now we know that we have a minority government currently. What's going to come next is what we're going to start seeing coming through over the next few weeks. Prime Minister Trudeau also said, and I quote, "I hear you when you say that you just want to get back to things you love, not worry about this pandemic or about an election, that you just want to know that your members of parliament of all stripes will have your back through this crisis and beyond." So there's an understanding, from my Prime Minister that folks do want to stay safe. We want to make it through this pandemic as safe as possible. We want to see changes happen, and we want to ensure that those who have been elected are working for the people and not just for, as we heard in those clips, not just for personal, political, or economic gains, that things are going to change to help Canadians who have really been dealt a tough hand, especially during this pandemic, our seniors, our students, those who have gone through the housing crisis and been majorly impacted by the housing crisis, folks, the Indigenous communities as well, issues to do with climate change. All these issues that are so near and dear to Canadians are things that are at the forefront and have been put to the front during this election, during this pandemic even, that folks just want answers for. They want to see the changes that have been promised. They want to make sure that our government is working for us. We even discussed this on election night when we did our election review with Andrea Barrett and Mr. George Chukwu. We talked about how many Canadians and how much Canadians want to see the party members and elected officials actually working for them. And we know that they are there because we, the people, put them there. They are working for us. We were the ones in charge of them being put into these positions of power. So holding them accountable for these promises that they've made, for the policies that they put forward, making sure that we're going to see it. I mean, one of the policies that have been widely discussed and supported is increasing minimum wage. I'm sure now Prime Minister Trudeau will need to somehow make that come to fruition. Of course, we know that NDP is also for that. As Jagmeet Singh said, he's also for increasing the minimum wage because we see that the cost of living is going so high, is increased over the last few years, and especially now in the pandemic, we've seen just how much that has impacted people, how much that has impacted small and medium-sized businesses. Having the support there necessary for those who have been deeply impacted by this pandemic and are still trying to recover and finding it hard to recover, making sure that they have the necessary support from our government, making sure that we actually do hit our targets when it comes to climate change. These are things that now Canadians are awake to, and that's going to impact what's going to come next for us in this country. It's going to impact who we're even going to elect for the next government. Now, a question that's on a lot of people's minds is, will this be Trudeau's last election? Because, he called this election a little earlier than expected. Now, as I mentioned before, he doesn't currently have a post-election media availability schedule, so we don't really know how much we're going to be hearing from him in these next few weeks, but hopefully we will hear a lot. And I'm sure once he does come before a microphone, he will likely have to address this outcome, definitely have to address this outcome, that you went in wanting a majority, now you have a minority. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to make sure that the policies that you put forward are going to come to fruition now that you're going to continue being our leader? He did say, and I quote, ultimately the decision comes down to him, and that the party bylaws allow him to continue to lead, whereas the other parties all have leadership reviews coming up for not winning government. So we know that other parties are going to have reviews come up, and that's going to also impact going forward who we're going to be looking to in terms of these changes that we as Canadians want to see. There are a lot of questions, and rightfully so. I mean, people, why have this election if it just had a similar outcome from before? Why not wait those 2 years? we're still waiting for those answers. I mean, during the campaign, we didn't really get a clear-cut answer as to why. It was a lot of, we want Canadians to make the right decision to move forward, make sure that Canadians know that they have the power to choose who they want to move forward through this pandemic, making sure that Canadians know that they are in charge or in control of who they want as a government. Okay, great. Now we've seen the outcome of these elections. What next? What are we going to do to push us forward? What are we going to do to ensure that the vulnerable people in our communities are supported, to make sure that we don't have these cracks come up again? If we do, God forbid, see another pandemic or see this pandemic continue or see other variants coming up, we want to make sure that we have put the leadership in the right hands. Make sure that we put the person in power who will put the people's best interests first, and not just their own political interests, not their own political goals, not whatever plans that they had for their own self. It is about the Canadian people at the end of the day. And that's what we heard a lot about during this campaign, is that this is about us, this is about us. Okay, now is the time to prove that it really is about us. Now is the time to show us that we are the most important thing here. I mean, we're the ones that have to live with the consequences of their decisions and their actions. There are a lot of people who felt that, the way things were handled during the pandemic were not handled correctly or efficiently enough, that vaccination rollouts were not as quickly as they should be, that, certain mandates weren't being put into effect as quickly as they should be, certain pressures weren't put on certain premiers to ensure that, the people within their provinces within Canada are staying safe. Now is the time for our leaders to rise up and prove that they do have our best interests first. Now, when we look at where we are right now, we know that mail-in ballots still need to be counted, but so far these projections are showing us that, we do have the Liberals in power and we have the minority government. Now that has led to a certain response from Conservative leader Erin O'Toole, who feels that there needs to be a post-election review regarding these mail-in ballots. He feels that, first of all, the elections weren't necessary. He feels that O'Toole actually appeared at his party's broadcast studio in downtown Ottawa. He had less than a spirited tone regarding this election. He did say that he does want to go into a proper review to just make sure that the votes have been counted correctly, essentially. Are we surprised? Honestly, are we surprised by this reaction? Of course, there are going to be people who are unsure about the way that there have been more mail-in ballots and ballots are still being counted, just to make sure that this is which government we have. But according to the projections, this is what we're dealing with, and this is what's next for us here in Canada. So those questions are still up, and in the next few weeks, we're hopeful to see some answers as to why it was necessary to have the elections 2 years earlier and what this will mean for Canadians going forward. Now, with that being said, we are moving forward in terms of how things are being dealt with in terms of certain mandates here, especially in Ontario. And for those of you who know, we do know that the official mandate regarding vaccine proof and vaccination proofs has come into effect. Once we come back from our break, we're going to discuss what that will look like, especially since this mandate was essentially put on by our current Liberal Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. So stay tuned as we dive into what this new mandate means for us right here in Ontario.
See, you're making chopping food now.
Chop?
Stop up.
Have you known Owen for long?
Oh wait, what's all this?
Oh, I took a shot.
Doing everything to embarrass my wife. Please, and you can hear me. Please leave my wife alone.
But she's not done. Get back to work. Don't take advantage of my goodness, buddy. Get back to work.
Listen, are you ready?
Yes.
Tell me right now that you're not scared.
No.
Are you sure?
Yes, I am.
See,
yes.
This is the real one.
Yes.
You hear me so?
Yes.
Hello and welcome back to the Chat Up Show. I'm your host, Elizabeth Eloidy, and what you just saw there was a trailer for a new movie that will be premiering October 2nd. It's the Not For Sale movie, a James Abifade production. Now, this premiere will be held at the Royal Event Centre at 30 Gordon Marquet Road in Toronto. For tickets, ticket information is $40 for singles, $50 at the door, and you can get a table for 10 for $1,000, and that comes with VVIP table and a bottle of Hennessy. Again, this is a premiere that's going to be happening October 2nd, so you can come out, as it said in the trailer. Come out. You can. There will be a chance to have cast appearances, live performances. DJ is going to be spinning the deck and making sure that it's a vibe for everybody. So if you want more information regarding this premiere, you can call the number 647-995-5029. Again, that's 647-995-5029. Or you can call the number 416-629-1821. That's 416-629-1821. Again, this is the premiere for the Not For Sale film premiering October 2nd. Come out, we'll see you there. GB Cam will be hosting the red carpet, so come out and come chat with us and enjoy the premiere of this film. Now, before we went on the break, I mentioned that the proof of vaccination mandate has come into effect here in Ontario. Earlier this month, we did discuss it right here on the Chat Up Show, how, before Premier Doug Ford had been saying that he wasn't planning on making this a mandate. He wasn't planning on putting this forward, that it wasn't part of his agenda, until Prime Minister Trudeau said that, this is something that we might need to do to ensure that people are staying safe, to hopefully increase vaccinations for us here in Ontario. As we know, Toronto has been a hotspot for COVID for the last year and a bit. And since vaccinations have been rising, we have been seeing some cases increase, but that's mostly in unvaccinated individuals. Since this mandate has come into effect, we know that there are certain, the University Hospital Network has made it compulsory for staff to be vaccinated within the federal government as well. Federal staff have been required to be vaccinated by a certain date. So for us regular citizens, if you want to call us that, what does that mean for us? So you will need to show proof of vaccination in various places. Some of these settings include restaurants and bars, excluding the outdoor patios. But as this, the summer is over, it's starting to get colder. We're getting closer to Thanksgiving, which means we're getting closer to Christmas, which means we're getting closer to winter and snow. So outdoor patios are probably going to be closed pretty soon. So that means for those who want to enjoy the restaurants and bars indoors, you will need to show a proof of vaccination upon entry. For nightclubs, including the outdoor areas for nightclubs. So for restaurants and bars, outdoor patios not included in needing a proof of vaccination. But if you're going to a nightclub, you want to pop some bottles in the club, does not matter if you're going to be in the outdoor or indoor area, you will need to show a proof of vaccination. Meeting and event spaces such as banquet halls and conference/convention centers, you will be required to show a proof of vaccination. Facilities used for sports and fitness activities and personal fitness training, such as gyms and fitness and recreational facilities, with the exemption of youth recreational sports, because we know that folks under the age of 12 will not actually need to show a proof of vaccination, but I will get into that when we discuss the settings that are exempted or folks who are exempted from showing their proof of vaccination. So if you are planning on going to the gym, or if you've been going to the gym, next time you go to the gym, you're going to need to show a proof of vaccination upon entry. Sporting events within stadiums, anytime you want to go check out your favorite team, you're going to need to take your proof of vaccination with you. Indoor areas of water parks, indoor areas of commercial film and TV production with studio audiences. So if you're going to be an audience member from now on, you're going to need to show a proof of vaccination. Casinos, bingo halls and gaming establishments, concerts, music festivals, theaters and cinemas, strip clubs, bathhouses, and racing venues. All of these settings is where you will need to show a proof of vaccination. Now, of course, this has created a lot of controversy, and a lot of people are saying that this goes against our freedom, our rights. This is the mandate that our government has put forward. Of course, you still do hold the right not to be vaccinated. This isn't to say that you have to get vaccinated. You still have the right not to be vaccinated, but at the same time, because of these mandates, if you do try to go to these establishments that require a proof of vaccination upon entry, you may not be allowed in, unless you can prove otherwise, that you cannot get a vaccination for medical reasons, or you are under a certain age that this requirement does not count for. Now, for those of you who are wondering about weddings and funeral, a wedding or funeral service, rite or ceremony, you are not attending the associate's social gathering or reception that is in a meeting or event space. So if it's not taking place in a meeting or event space, you will not need to show proof of vaccination. Social gathering associated with a funeral service, rite, or ceremony that is being held in a business license under the Funeral, Burial, and Cremation Services Act as of 2022. So between September 2nd and October 12th, the province says that a negative COVID test or a negative antigen test taken no more than 48 hours prior can be used to gain access in indoor social gathering associated with a wedding or a funeral. So if you are planning on going to a wedding or funeral, you do not have a proof of vaccination, you can still attend the social gathering, provided you provide a negative COVID test or a negative antigen test as well. So individuals under a certain age, children under 12 will not need to show a proof of vaccination. People under the age of 18 who are entering the indoor premises of a facility used for sports and recreational facilities solely for the purpose of actively participating in an organized sport will not need to show a proof. Proof of vaccination is also not required for retail shopping, for salons and barbershops, for banks, for places of worship, for essential services like pharmacies, etc., workplaces or patios and other outdoor spaces. So those are the spaces that you will not need to show a proof of vaccination. So if you're going to the grocery store and then you want to stop off and get a bite to eat indoor in a restaurant, you're going to need to show your proof of vaccination in the restaurant, but not at the grocery store. Now, of course, this is for now. We do not know what's going to happen in the near future. This is just the mandate for now, at least until October 22nd, when we know that the app that the province is planning on putting together to use the QR code for proof of vaccination will be rolling out. The province also warned that proof of a negative COVID-19 test or a recent infection will not replace the vaccination certificate unless already previously stated, for example, for the wedding or the funerals. Now, another question that a lot of people are asking is, can I get a medical exemption if I can't get the vaccine? Now, the Ontario government said that there are 2 valid medical exemptions to getting the vaccine. The first will be an allergic reaction to a component of the vaccine within an individual, which must be confirmed by an allergist or immunologist. The second would be if an individual suffered myocarditis or pericarditis after the first dose of a vaccine. So if you had some sort of allergic reaction or have some sort of allergic reaction to something within the vaccine, or if you had some sort of medical reaction to the first dose, and you can prove this with a note or documentation from a doctor, then you will be exempt from having to show proof of vaccine. But essentially, it's like you have to walk around with a doctor's note at all time to prove that you cannot take the vaccination if you want to go to the settings in the areas that require a proof of vaccine. The province will require written documentation from a physician or nurse practitioner. So if this is something that you're dealing with, you will need to get a written documentation from a physician or nurse practitioner stating that the bearer is medically exempt from being fully vaccinated for a specified time period. So it can't just be, any time. It has to say like, this is the reason why, and the time period that time period has to be specified. For children under 12, they will not need to show proof of vaccination. So a lot of folks feel that this is, we've seen a lot of the protests. They feel that this is infringing on their rights as human beings, their rights not to get vaccinated. But we're going to look at both sides of it. Of course, it's it's annoying, you know, that everywhere you go now you have to carry the proof of vaccination, that you have to show that you are fully vaccinated to enter places that before you probably won't even think twice about. Life has changed during this pandemic. We've seen it before our eyes, that the way we interact with people, the way we're doing things, even voting at the polling locations, you needed to be masked, physical distancing, all of these things. Like, it's not life that we knew. It is not the way it is now. This is our new normal. And there's certain things that our government's going to have to do to ensure that the majority of our population are staying as safe as possible. And then there's the other side of the coin, where folks feel that this is too harsh, that this is too much for our government to be putting out, that, you know, is essentially forcing your hand to be vaccinated if you want to do the things that you were doing before. Just going to the gym now is going to be a whole thing. It's going to be, before you leave the house, you're going to be thinking my keys, my cards, my wallet, my keys, and my proof of vaccination just to leave the house, just in case. You can't just stop by into the cinema anymore. You can't just stop by the gym or go to a restaurant just to stop by. Now you have to make sure that you have the necessary documentation on hand to be able to enter these facilities. Again, this is the best way that a lot of folks feel that the government can make sure that people are staying safe. Of course, this is for us in Ontario right here. This is the mandate that has been put across. We're going to see over the next few weeks how this works out. You know, in theory, it sounds like it's a thing in theory, but to actually see how it plays out is going to be a different story. Going to see how certain restaurants, you know, react to certain individuals. Like, will people be kicked out or arrested if they do not provide proof of vaccination when asked? Will there be people who skirt under the radar? And then the other question is, how is the government how are these establishments going to be able to tell the difference between a real documentation or fake documentation, a real doctor's note or a fake doctor's note? These are other things on top of the jobs that they already have to do that they're going to have to think of. We also know, based on our coverage on it a few weeks ago, is that restaurant staff do not have to go through these things. They will not have to show their proof of vaccination for working within the establishment, though patrons will. So then how come there isn't a balance between the people that are working there but the folks who are coming in just to spend maybe an hour or 2 hours tops? Now, another exemption that we want to also iterate is that if you are going to a place just to use the washroom, to pay for an order, to access an outdoor area that can only be accessed through an indoor route, to place or pick up an order, including placing a bet or picking up winnings at a horse track, to purchase admission, to purchase the ticket, to make a retail purchase, or for the purposes of health and safety. So, for example, if you just need to run in and out to grab a mask or something, you will not have to show proof of vaccination. So then that opens up another wormhole of what if someone says that they're just going to use the bathroom and they end up spending a little more time, they see someone that they know and they're going to join them at their table. How will we keep track of that? These are things that we're only going to be able to see over the next few weeks and see how this really does come into play now that it is a mandate, now that this is our new normal. I mean, are we surprised that this is where things were going? Some may be, some may not be. Especially now, it's a lot coming. We just had an election and now there's this new mandate, and it feels like there's a lot that's going on that feels very quick, rushed, that feels like, you know, this shouldn't be happening this quickly. Folks are possibly going to be losing their jobs if they're not vaccinated in certain industries. How is this fair? Is this against human rights? But then when it comes to ensuring the health and safety of a population, a lot of our government and a lot of people feel that overrides whatever freedom you feel that you have. That if it's for the better good of the greater population, then this is the things that we need to do to ensure that people are staying safe. I mean, we are literally in the middle of a fourth wave. It's not that it's ended. It's not like the pandemic is over, and that this is the next step that the government feels that is right. That especially our provincial government feels that it's right. Even though Premier Doug Ford did say that he didn't want to do this initially, he felt that he had no other option because the fact that the rates of unvaccinated people who are still in our hospitals, who are getting sick, who are losing their lives, it's still happening. It's not that we're seeing zero deaths. Even though the numbers are low, there are still people who are getting seriously sick. And then on top of that, we're still trying to understand the long-term effects of COVID-19. we've been in this a long time. Granted, it's been over a year and a half now, but we're still understanding the long-term effects of what happens when someone contracts COVID-19 before there were the vaccines and even after the vaccines. There's still so much we don't know fully. I mean, of course, a lot of science has come out with research regarding why it is safe and important for us to stay vaccinated, why it's important for us to still keep wearing our masks even if we are vaccinated. It's important for us to still stay diligent. We're still trying to understand the long-term effects of this virus. And it's a hard place to be, you know. Just imagine you have to make this decision as a business owner. This is a mandate that's been put in place by our government. So please, if you are entering certain places, if you're going to restaurants and you want to take it out on the business owner or the employees there, just remember that they are just following the rules that have been put in place for them, that it's essentially above them. They can't do it on a case-by-case basis, that they're just going according to the rules and the regulations that our government has put in place. So have some empathy, compassion for restaurant workers and staff, for those who are working in cinemas and gyms. Understand that this is above them, that it's not like they're picking on you personally, that this is a mandate that our government has put forward. And if you do have an issue, you can call your local representatives in your area. You can call your MP and you can voice these complaints to them. You can tell them why it feels like it's against your rights as a human being to be asked about your medical history or medical conditions, or to prove that you have a certain medical condition, or to have to go get a doctor's note to prove that you shouldn't be vaccinated. You can call them and voice your complaints to, you know, our elected officials. But remember, you can't take it out on the staff who are working to, you know, make things easier for us. During this pandemic, it hasn't been easy for our hospitality industries, and they've had to go according to what the government has been telling them, and they've also getting the short end of the stick in a lot of these mandates and a lot of these regulations and a lot of these rules. We're still not fully where we want to be in terms of our full capacity or full freedom as to how we were living life before. As I mentioned, we are still very much riding this fourth wave. And if this is one step that we need to take to keep ourselves safe, not saying that you have to get vaccinated, but also understanding that these are the rules that our government have put in place, and it's not the rules that certain establishments are just putting there just to say that they're there. They're not putting it there just to, you know, discriminate against you personally. These are mandates that are being put forward. And of course, a lot of business owners are worried that, you know, what happens, how will they be protected if they are met with a belligerent or, you know, rather violent customer who doesn't agree with this new mandate? We also have to realize that these are human beings too. They have a job to do as well. And they're also trying to make ends meet. And they also want to serve you, but they don't want to get in trouble with the law. So we also have to think about that other side of it too, that yes, as the customers, it's kind of annoying that you have to show your proof of vaccination. Even if you are vaccinated, there are people who are feeling that this is too much. Like, I'm vaccinated already. How much more do you want for me to like prove that I'm doing my part to ensure that our overall community is staying safe? The same with these staff and these workers. They're also doing their parts to try and keep themselves and their community safe as well. They have to wear masks constantly. They have to make sure that people are adhering to proper social distancing and the social distancing guidelines and bylaws. There's a lot more, and on top of that, doing their jobs. There's a lot more that they have to now focus on as well. So during this time, if anything, as your host today, I will ask for compassion and a little grace during this period, as we are in a transition period. It's going to take some time for folks to get used to it. Already, I mean, a lot of you did get like your proof of vaccination emailed. So what I will suggest is saving it onto your phone somehow so that it's easy to pull up. If you only got a physical copy, then maybe you need to take a picture of it or scan it or keep it in your wallet or keep it in the glove compartment of your car so that you never forget it again. Because, you know, these next few months, it's going to take a little time to get used to it. But until we have at least the app that will be permanently on your phone, so that whenever you don't have to take the actual physical proof of vaccination with you. And in terms of the fake proof of vaccinations that a lot of people have been bringing up as to why we shouldn't have this mandate in the first place, the government says that we do expect to have to deal with this, and that's why they created the app, so that it is a unique code to you specifically, so that no one can really, you know, fake that. So as of October 22nd, as I mentioned, we will have that app available so that you can use a QR code to scan your information and to show that you are fully vaccinated and that there's no way to really, purchase a fake code off the black market. Maybe, I don't know how that technology works, but there's less likely a chance to purchase a fake QR code off the black market to prove that you are vaccinated. So these are what's coming up next for us here in Ontario. And as I mentioned earlier regarding the election and what that means moving forward for us as Canadians as well, we're going to see some more stuff rolling out in the next couple of weeks. Of course, on the Chat Up Show, we will definitely keep you updated regarding all of these changes and what's coming next. It's going to be an interesting time. It's going to be an interesting next few months. But above all else, just remember the importance of staying safe, keeping yourself protected, keeping your loved ones protected. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're all safe, healthy, happy. We're going to be going into our holiday season as well. And that also brings about worries about traveling. Thanksgiving is coming up in the next couple of weeks. You want to make sure that you are safe while you're traveling to go see family. You want to make sure that your family's safe and healthy. A lot of our restrictions have been lifted here. We know that we're most likely, hopefully not going to go back into another lockdown, but we may be seeing some more of these mandates being really, really strict. Right now, as I mentioned, the places that are exempt, let me just go through that again for those that may just be joining us. So you will not need to show a proof of vaccine if you're going into a business to use the washroom, to pay for an order, to access an outdoor area that can only be accessed through an indoor pathway, to place or pick up an order, including placing a bet or picking up winnings at a horse track, to purchase a ticket or admission, to make a retail purchase. Of course, if you are exempt, what you will need to show is documentation from a medical official or nurse practitioner showing that you are exempt from being fully vaccinated. For the two medical exemptions are if you are allergic to a component of the vaccine or you had a medical reaction to the first dose. Where you do need to show proof of vaccination is in most non-essential settings. So, in restaurants and bars, indoors, if you're planning on sitting indoors, which most people are now, in nightclubs, even if you are going to be in the outdoor area, you still need to show a proof of vaccine. Meeting and event spaces such as banquet halls and conferences or convention centers, facilities used for sports and fitnesses like gyms and some recreational facilities, except for youth recreational sports facilities, sporting events, indoor areas of water parks, indoor areas of commercial film and television production with studio audiences, casinos, bingo halls and gaming establishments, concerts, music festivals, theaters and cinemas, strip clubs, bathhouses, and racing venues. So those are the places that you will need to show proof of vaccination. If you are under the age of 12, you will not need to show a proof of vaccination, as the population of folks under the age of 12, they're still getting their full dose. But for now, if you're under the age of 12, you do not need to show your vaccination. If you are attending a wedding and funeral as of now, between September 22nd and October 12th, the province says that a negative antigen COVID-19 test will suffice if you are wanting to attend these social gatherings. But after October 12th, chances are you will need to show a proof of vaccination for those social gatherings as well. Now, of course, if you are planning on hosting a wedding and funeral, it can also be up to your discretion to let a guest know that if they are not vaccinated, you do not want them to attend. Now, that's up to you. But according to this mandate, the people at these facilities in these establishments will not tell you that you cannot come if you do not have a proof of vaccination. But they can refuse entry if you do not show a negative COVID test instead of the proof of vaccination. So if you don't have proof of vaccination, you will need a negative COVID test if you're planning on attending any weddings or funerals between today, September 22nd, and October 12th. And those are your updates for this week. And there you have it with the Chat Up Show. That concludes our show for today. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, you know that you can keep up with the GBKM network by listening and watching live 24/7 at www.gbkm.tv or www.gbkm.fm. Make sure you download our free app as well so that you will be notified every time we go live, so you won't need to miss a show, you won't miss another breaking news news again, just search GBKM in the Apple or Google Play Store. This is available for all iOS and Android devices. You can continue to watch us on Facebook and YouTube at GBKM Network, and make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at GBKM Network to receive more updates on what's going on right here on GBKM. And to follow me, your host, Elizabeth Eloidy, on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow me at TIS_Liz_O to receive more updates on what's going on the Chat Up Show and even on the network as well. And with that, please do stay safe. Make sure you don't forget your proof of vaccine if you have one when you're going out. And I will see you same time, same place next week. Take care.
The bad news is that everyone is a potential victim, but the good news is that everyone is a potential solution. Sensitize the masses to sanitize, keep a social distance and quarantine. Stop!
The coronavirus is sweeping over mankind.
Everybody must be alert. It's a global pandemic we can never take for granted. Kila mtu must be alert. It's a matter of life we can never take for granted. Discipline and personal hygiene, and make sure you regularly wash your hands. Keep a distance from everyone. Report anything like a symptom. Serious fever is a symptom. Dry cough is a symptom. Walkway tamula is a symptom. Itchy eyes and flu is a symptom.
Butabusiga bejemu batanalwala olaga omwoyo gw'eggwanga olabira ku itale abasinga bafudde okuwebala kisingako obujjanjaba. The coronavirus is sweeping over mankind.
Everybody must be alert. It's a global pandemic we can never take for granted. Kila mtu must be alert. It's a matter of life we can never take for granted.
The coronavirus is sweeping over mankind.
Everybody must be alert.
Flexible schedule? Welcome to Keenan Courier. Keenan Courier works as a marketplace platform connecting customers who need something delivered with drivers that are willing to serve them. Courier with any vehicle, better trip allocation, and cash out your earnings whenever you want. Download our driver apps today to sign up.